Chapter 4. Ethics and Research. Introduction. The term ethics refers to questions of right and wrong. When researchers think about ethics, they must ask themselves if it is right to conduct a particular study or investigate a certain question. Are there some kinds of studies that should not be conducted? This chapter considers this question in detail and presents a number of ethical principles important for researchers to think about. Some examples of unethical practice. A research is unethical when a researcher does the following. Requires a group of high school sophomores to sign a form in which they agree to participate in a research study. Deletes data that do not support the hypothesis. Involves a group of 8th graders in a research study that may harm them psychologically without informing them or their parents of this fact. 2. A statement of ethical principles. The terms ethical and moral are often used interchangeably, although the former is applied more to describe codes of conduct in groups or professions. What researchers consider to be ethical, therefore, is largely a matter of agreement among them. Some years ago, the Committee on Scientific and Professional Ethics of the American Psychological Association published a list of ethical principles for the conduct of research with human subjects. The statement of ethical principles suggests 3 very important issues that every researcher should address: protecting participants from harm, ensuring confidentiality of research data, and the question of deception of subjects. 3. Protecting participants from harm. It is a fundamental responsibility of every researcher to do all in his or her power to ensure that participants in a research study are protected from physical or psychological harm, discomfort, or danger that may arise due to research procedures. A further responsibility in protecting individuals from harm is obtaining their informed consent if they may be exposed to any risk. Researchers should carefully consider whether there is any likelihood of risk involved and, if there is, provide full information followed by formal consent by participants, or their guardians. 4. Ensuring confidentiality of research data. All subjects should be assured that any data collected from or about them will be held in confidence. The names of individual subjects should never be used in any publications that describe the research. All participants in a study should always have the right to withdraw from the study or to request that data collected about them not be used. When, if ever, is deception of subjects justified? The issue of deception is particularly troublesome. Many studies cannot be carried out unless some deception of subjects takes place. Current professional guidelines on the inclusion of deception in a research are as follows. Whenever possible, a researcher should conduct the study using methods that do not require deception. If alternative methods cannot be devised, the researcher should determine whether the use of deception is justified by the prospective study's scientific, educational, or applied value. If the participants are deceived, the researcher must ensure that they are provided with sufficient explanation as soon as possible. 6. 3 examples involving ethical concerns. Study 1, the researcher plans to observe, unobtrusively, students in each of 40 classrooms, 8 visits each of 40 minutes duration. The purpose of the observations is to look for relationships between the behavior of students and certain teacher behavior patterns. Possibility of harm to the participants. This study would fall within the exempt category regarding the possibility of harm to the participants. Neither teachers nor students are placed under any risk, and observation is an accepted part of school practice. Confidentiality of the research data. The only issue that is likely to arise in this regard is the possible but unlikely observation of a teacher behaving in an illegal or unethical way, e.g., physically or verbally abusing a student. Deception. Although no outright deception is involved, the researcher is going to have to give the teachers a rationale for observing them. if the specific teacher characteristic being observed, e.g., need to control, is given, the behavior in question is likely to be affected. Study 2. The researcher wishes to study the value of a workshop on suicide prevention for high school students. The workshop is to consist of 3 two-hour meetings in which danger signals, causes of suicide, and community resources that provide counseling will be discussed. Students will volunteer, and half will be assigned to a comparison group that will not participate in the workshop. Outcomes will be assessed by comparing the information learned and attitudes of those attending the meetings with those who do not attend. Possibility of harm to the participants. Whether this study fits the exempt category with regard to any possibility of risk for the participants depends on the extent to which it is atypical for the school in question. Confidentiality of the research data. No problems are foreseen in this regard, although confidentiality as to what will occur during the workshop cannot, of course, be guaranteed. Deception. No problems are foreseen. Study 3. The researcher wishes to study the effects of failure versus success by teaching junior high students a motor skill during a series of 6 10-minute instructional periods. After each training period, the students will be given feedback on their performance as compared with that of other students. To control extraneous variables, such as coordination, the researcher plans to randomly divide the students into 2 groups. Half will be told that their performance was relatively poor and the other half will be told that they are doing well. Their actual performance will be ignored. Possibility of harm to the participants. This study presents several problems. Some students in the failure group may well suffer emotional distress. Confidentiality of the research data. Confidentiality does not appear to be an issue in this study. Deception. The deception of participants is clearly an issue. One alternative is to base feedback on actual performance. 7. Research with children. Children as research subjects present problems for researchers that are different from those of adult subjects. Children are more vulnerable, have fewer legal rights, and often do not understand the meaning of informed consent. Studies using children as participants present special issues for researchers. The following specific guidelines need to be considered. Informed consent of parents or of those legally designated as caretakers is required for participants defined as minors. Children may never be coerced into participation in a study. 8. Regulation of research. Before any research involving human beings can be conducted at an institution that receives federal funds, it must be reviewed by an Institutional Review Board, IRB, at the institution. The federal agency that has the major responsibility for establishing the guidelines for research studies that involve human subjects is the Department of Health and Human Services. 9. Academic cheating and plagiarism. Prior to the Internet, plagiarism, the act of misrepresenting someone else's work as one's own, was more difficult to commit and get away with. Today, online plagiarism checking tools like Turnitin are available for faculty and students to identify possible instances of plagiarism.